It is a Sunday afternoon. The house is completely quiet. There are no urgent emails, no looming deadlines, no immediate crises to solve. The battlefield of your week is finally empty. You have the peace you have been begging for. And you are suffocating. Your chest feels tight. A subtle, creeping anxiety begins to crawl up your spine. You open your phone, desperately searching for something to be outraged about. You manufacture a disagreement with someone you love. You start obsessing over a financial problem that doesn't actually exist yet. You scroll. You refresh. You seek out bad news. You want something to be angry about. Because anger is a weapon you understand. Peace feels like falling into a bottomless pit. Why? Why do you destroy the very peace you claim to want? Imagine your mind is a massive stone fortress, iron gates, high walls, a deep moat. For years, this fortress has been under siege. The guards inside are exhausted, but they are alert. Their purpose is absolute. Survive the attack, fight off the enemy, hold the line. But one day, the enemy retreats, the war ends, the fields outside grow perfectly quiet. The drawbridge is pulled up. What happens to the soldiers inside? They do not rest. They go mad. The silence terrifies them. Without an enemy to focus on, they start imagining threats in the shadows. They begin to turn their swords on each other. They set fires in their own courtyard just to have something to extinguish, just to feel something, just to have a war to fight. Your mind is a fortress that has forgotten how to exist without a siege. This is core wisdom, and today we're going deeper. If you have ever felt this way, if you know what it is like to fight your own mind when the room goes quiet, you are in the right place. Subscribe. We build the fortress together. But it gets worse. You have convinced yourself that this restlessness is a virtue. You call it ambition. You call it being a grinder. You tell yourself that you simply cannot sit still because you are destined for more. You wear your stress like a badge of honor. You think your inability to relax is proof of your superiority. Look closer. That is a lie you tell your ego to avoid looking at the truth. The truth is far more uncomfortable. You are not ambitious. You are running. And you are terrified of what will catch up to you if you stop moving. 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Seneca watched the wealthiest, most powerful men in Rome suffer from this exact same sickness. These were men who had conquered the known world. They had endless wealth, massive estates, and absolute security. Yet, Seneca noted that they were completely incapable of sitting alone in a room. Imagine the Roman commander. He returns from a brutal 10-year military campaign in the frozen forests of Germania. For a decade, his life was defined by the blade, the march, and survival. He finally comes home to his magnificent, peaceful villa in the hills. The marble is cool. The gardens are perfectly silent. And within a month, he is pacing the floors like a trapped animal. He begins treating his family like enemy combatants. He starts bitter, unnecessary political wars in the Senate. He risks his wealth and his life on foolish schemes. Seneca wrote that these men were fleeing themselves. They possessed the entire world, but they could not endure 10 minutes of their own company. They traveled frantically from province to province, hoping a change of scenery would cure their internal dread. But, as Seneca observed, they packed their own heavy baggage no matter where they sailed. They were refugees from their own minds. Because the war outside is always easier to handle than the war inside. The ancients had a word for this restless dread. But modern psychology has finally mapped the precise mechanics of your prison. Let us examine the walls, layer by layer. You think your inability to relax is just a personality quirk. It is not. You are dealing with a severe chemical dependency. Your nervous system is addicted to chaos. For years, you have operated in a state of high alert, stress, deadlines, conflict, survival. Your brain has flooded your body with cortisol and adrenaline for so long that chaos has become your biological baseline. It feels like home. When the environment finally becomes peaceful, your body actually goes into withdrawal. Your nervous system detects the sudden drop in stress hormones and interprets it as a massive threat. It sounds an alarm. It tells you that if you are not worrying, you are not safe. It whispers a dark lie into your ear. If you drop your shield, you will be destroyed. So you subconsciously create a crisis. You pick a fight over nothing. You procrastinate until the absolute last minute to manufacture panic. You take a massive, unnecessary risk. You date chaotic people who drain your energy. You set the fortress on fire just so you can feel the familiar, comforting rush of putting it out. Be honest with yourself. You are not a victim of a chaotic life. You are the architect of it. And this raises a question that philosophers and psychologists have argued about for centuries. What exactly are you so afraid of finding in the quiet? If peace is so terrifying, what is hiding in the silence? Carl Jung, the pioneer of modern psychology, understood this perfectly. He called it the shadow. When you are fighting a war, when you are putting out fires and managing daily chaos, you have a perfect excuse to ignore your deeper wounds. Chaos is the ultimate distraction. It is the heavy, deafening noise that drowns out the quiet voice of your unhealed self. Jung knew that your conscious mind creates an identity based on competence. You are the problem solver. You are the resilient one. You are the warrior. You know how to survive the storm. But what happens to the warrior identity when there is no storm? He loses his purpose. The ego feels irrelevant. It feels like death. So, the ego manufactures a crisis to justify its own existence. You secretly hate peace because peace is a mirror. When the water is rough and choppy, you cannot see your own reflection. But when the water becomes completely still, you are forced to look at exactly who you are. You are forced to look at the grief you never processed. You are forced to look at the apologies you never gave. You are forced to look at the emptiness of the life you have built. But here's what nobody tells you. Your ego is terrified of the silence because the silence demands an audit. When you are surviving, you do not have to grow. You have a perfect excuse for your flaws. You can blame your anger on the stressful job. You can blame your emotional distance on your busy schedule. You can blame your exhaustion on the heavy burdens you carry. The chaos is a shield. It protects you from the crushing responsibility of becoming the person you were meant to be. And this is where everything changes. In the 17th century, the philosopher Blaise Pascal made a terrifying observation. He wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from a single, tragic cause: man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Centuries before him, the Zen masters of the East discovered the exact same phenomenon. They called it the monkey mind. When you remove the external enemy, the untrained mind will immediately invent an internal one. It swings violently from regret about the past to anxiety about the future. It searches for a threat because it believes a threat is the only thing that gives it purpose. You think you are seeking peace, but the moment you achieve it, you hand a loaded weapon to the monkey. So, how do you disarm it? How do you cure an addiction that is wired into your very nervous system? You must treat it exactly like a drug withdrawal. And you must prepare for the pain. When you first stop creating chaos, it will not feel peaceful. It will feel like dying. Your skin will crawl. Your chest will tighten. A wave of manufactured panic will wash over you. Your brain will scream at you to do something. Check the phone, send the text, start the argument, fix the problem that does not exist. This is the critical moment. This is where the weak surrender. They cannot handle the withdrawal, so they lower the drawbridge. They invite the invaders back into the fortress just to end the unbearable tension of the silence. They trade their sovereignty for the familiar comfort of a war zone. Stop. Read that again. You are trading your sovereignty for the familiar comfort of a war zone. The ancients possessed a different kind of strength. The Stoics practiced a discipline called Prosoché, the art of absolute, unflinching attention. The Zen masters practiced shikantaza, simply sitting. Not meditating to achieve bliss, not chanting to feel good, just sitting in the brutal, uncomfortable silence until the ego starves to death. They understood a profound psychological truth. You cannot fight the chaos with more chaos. You cannot argue with the guards in your mind. If you engage with the anxiety, you are feeding it. If you try to aggressively force yourself to relax, you are just creating another battle. You must do something far more difficult. You must do absolutely nothing. Imagine you are sitting on the throne in the center of your fortress. The war is over, but the guards are rushing in. They are screaming that the walls are breached. They are pointing to shadows. They are begging you to sound the alarm. A weak king panics and orders the army to march. A sovereign king simply watches them. He does not argue. He does not yell. He looks at the false alarms. He feels the tension in the room. He watches the cortisol flood his own veins. And he breathes. He lets the panic rise, and he waits for it to fall. Because he knows it is a lie. There is no tiger in the room. There is no army at the gates. The threat is entirely manufactured by a mind that has forgotten how to rest. Now, pay attention. This is the part that matters. You have to train your body to realize that the absence of a threat is not a trap. The peace is not a trick. You are actually safe. But your nervous system will not believe this just because you tell it to. It has to experience the silence and survive it. You have to sit in the quiet room, let the anxiety scream at you, and prove to yourself that the anxiety cannot kill you. This is the forge. This is where the new self is carved. It requires a brutal, cold discipline. When the Sunday afternoon arrives and the house is quiet and the itch begins in your brain, do not move. When your partner makes a neutral comment and your addicted brain tries to twist it into an insult so you can start a fight, do not speak. When the project is finished and the email is sent and you feel the desperate urge to invent a new crisis just to feel productive, step away. You are going to feel empty. You are going to feel useless. And that is exactly the point. You have attached your entire self-worth to your ability to endure stress. You measure your value by how much weight you can carry and how many fires you can put out. If there are no fires, you feel worthless. This is the ultimate prison of the modern mind. You must let that false identity starve. Let the toxic productivity wither away. Let the false warrior who only knows how to fight invisible enemies lay down his sword. The dominoes are falling. You are beginning to realize that true power is not the ability to fight every war. True power is the ability to sit in a perfectly quiet room and not feel the need to start one. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. The pain of the withdrawal is actually the cure working its way through your veins. Does the silence make your skin crawl? Good. You are finally feeling the exhaustion you have been running from. Does the lack of drama make you feel invisible? Good. Your ego is starving, and your true self is getting room to breathe. Does the empty calendar terrify you? Good. You are being forced to build a life of meaning instead of a life of reaction. You are no longer a mercenary looking for a battlefield to justify your existence. You are transitioning into the sovereign. The sovereign does not need a crisis to feel important. He does not need an enemy to know his own strength. His strength is self-evident in his absolute stillness. When you stop manufacturing chaos, something terrifying and beautiful happens. The energy you spent putting out imaginary fires is suddenly returned to you. You have been living on a fraction of your actual potential. The rest of your power was wasted on a civil war inside your own mind. Imagine what you could build if you stopped burning your own house down just to stay warm. Marcus Aurelius commanded legions. He had enemies conspiring against him in the Senate. He faced plagues, betrayals, and endless wars on the frontier. But his ultimate goal, written in his private journals, was always the same: to remain untouched. He built an inner citadel so strong that the chaos of the world could not penetrate it. But more importantly, he refused to invite the chaos inside just to keep himself entertained. He knew that a king who goes looking for a war will eventually lose his kingdom. Let that sink in. A king who goes looking for a war will eventually lose his kingdom. Your peace is not a void waiting to be filled with anxiety. It is the canvas on which your actual life is meant to be painted. It is the space where your shadow is finally integrated. It is the moment where the armor comes off and the real work begins. So, let us return to this Sunday afternoon. The house is completely quiet. There are no urgent emails, no looming deadlines, no immediate crises to solve. The battlefield of your week is finally empty. The familiar tightening begins in your chest. The whisper starts in the back of your mind. It tells you to check your phone. It tells you to find a problem. It tells you to light a fire. But this time, you do not move. You sit in the center of your fortress. You let the drawbridge remain up. You tell the guards to stand down. You look at the silence, and you do not see a threat. You see a sanctuary. You let the withdrawal wash over you. You feel the false panic rise, and you simply watch it fall. You sit in the absolute, terrifying quiet until the stillness stops being a prison and starts becoming your power. You do not need a war to prove you are alive. Tonight, when the noise tries to pull you back into the dark, do not fight it. Just gently remind yourself that the siege is over. You control the gates. You are safe inside the walls. Let it be quiet.